Okay, so the Browns beat the Lions in less than I don't want to say convincing because it was a convincing victory. I didn't really think the Browns were in risk of losing that game at all throughout all of it. Frustrating fashion, but nonetheless convincing enough, I guess. But they beat the Lions. It's not the big, explosion of points that everybody was thinking that was going to happen. Still, the same problems with the offense exist with this team, and there's obvious stuff that you can talk about and be frustrated about. And I've already talked about some of that stuff in my live streams, both the post and the watch party. So you go check those out if you want to hear the stuff that I'm like upset about this. But I have just realized, just going through social media, I took like extra few hours and like kind of just took a nap and just really digested everything before I made this video, because I've just noticed, the everything surrounding this victory is just so overwhelmingly negative about this team, with how people are coming out to it. And, I just don't think that's right. Like, I get being skeptical, I get being critical of the team, but like there is like no acknowledgement almost. This team won a football game that they needed to win. Again, it's the Lions, and the Lions are not a good team, but the Lions have played other teams in the AFC North much tougher than they played the Browns today. I mean, they almost beat the Ravens. They almost beat the Steelers. They tied with the Steelers on the road. You know what I mean? So this is not a team that's incapable, and especially when the Browns don't play at their best level, they're going to be able to keep it close. They're still an NFL football team. But that's why I wanted to kind of switch up my approach here, right? Because I think what's become the usual approach here is to get angry and have a hot take about the Browns and just yell that somebody needs to be fired or benched or replaced, and just kind of do what Browns media has done in this city for the last 20 years, which is the angry Browns fan gimmick. And look, I'm not shading anybody who enjoys that trope. I'm not shading anybody who is that trope, right? We all know that person in our life that's the angry Browns fan and just gets mad and screams at the TV, even though the Browns won. We all know those people in our lives, and there's no shade to that. But for me personally, just as somebody who has been a fan of this team for a long time, as somebody who now covers this team for the last few years, that's a trope that I'm over. Like, I just have no energy for the purposely angry, ranty Browns fan thing where you're just going to scream and everybody needs to be fired. For what I do here, I don't think that's productive. And, I don't think there's any educational value in that as far as like the game of football goes. And I just think it just feeds into this nonsense that we're in as a fan base, right? Where there are so many hives for so many specific things on this team that it feels like the fan base is fighting each other on every single possession to prove a point on every single play. If Baker completes a pass, he's the greatest quarterback of all time. If he misses a pass, he's terrible and we should trade him. If Kevin Stefanski has a good drive and they score, why did you ever criticize Kevin Stefanski, Quincy? But if Kevin Stefanski has a bad drive, we should fire the former coach of the year. It's just become this polarizing mess of people who are just trying to prove themselves right rather than just watch a football game and take the information in for what it is. There's still people still trying to prove the Odell stuff, that axe to grind one way or the other, right? And it's kind of just exhausting. And then I look out here and I see what people's reactions are, and it's just more of that. People trying to prove a point, and more normally it's about a negative point about this team, almost gleefully, right? Like, Baker's not playing well, but nobody should be happy about that, right? We should all be able to accept the reality that Baker Mayfield this year in 2021 has been an absolute 1,000% disappointment compared to what we thought he was going to be coming into this year. Like, there's no ifs, ands about it. I know he's been hurt, But quite frankly, this is somebody we thought could play at a franchise level, and franchise quarterbacks got to play well when they hurt. Like, it's a unreasonable bar, but that's where the bar was set for Baker Mayfield because we thought he was better than what he is playing to right now. So I get that he has the excuses and the injuries and all that. It's just not relevant enough for me to excuse the level of play that we've gotten this entire season, right? The low scoring and all of that. So we should be able to acknowledge that Baker Mayfield is not having a good year. He has been a disappointment this year, but also understand that that's not a good thing. That's not something to be excited about, right? Trying to find a better quarterback than Baker Mayfield, whether you think Baker's good or not, is difficult. You know how I know that? It's because we spent the last 20 years on trying to find a better quarterback than Baker Mayfield, but we haven't. The best we found is Baker Mayfield. So with that being the case, the prospect of having to look for a new quarterback potentially if he can't get his level of play up is very disappointing and disheartening. And it sucks. It's not something to be happy about. But yet I see people, for whatever reason, they have an axe to grind against Baker Mayfield from either college or they didn't like him in pre-draft or whatever, and they're gleeful about that. Gleeful about this team having to go back into the quarterback hole potentially. Doesn't make sense to me. So again, I'm saying all this to say that I understand that there's a lot about this team that makes a lot of what's been here so far throughout the year disappointing to the point to where the team is 6-5 and we're reacting like we're 0-8 or 0-9. I get why it could feel that way, but still, on the other hand, you can't not acknowledge that there's a ton on the table for this Browns team this season. I mean, they're in the thick of the wild card race, still at 6-5. They're right in the middle of it. They're 2 games back in the division with 2 games against the leader in the Baltimore Ravens. And as bad as this Browns team has been, right, if they can put together 6 good weeks here to end the season, or maybe let's just think in the micro, and they put in 3 good weeks here, right, the bye week, the 2 games against Baltimore. Let's say they get 2 wins against Baltimore, they get the bye week, they get healthy. The Browns will all of a sudden be in first place if they can get those wins against Baltimore, right? They'll either be in first place or tied for first place if they get those 2 wins. And we're talking about home playoff game and maybe the 2 seed. So things can change rapidly in the NFL. And I guess that's my main point about this entire season. I know that sometimes it feels like things get stuck in these loops, but when it comes to the NFL, you could play terrible one week and have your greatest game the next week. And we know that because the Browns had their greatest game of the season against the Bengals and their worst game of the season against the Patriots. We're not going to mince words here. What we saw on the offensive side of the ball has been bad, but it's been bad all year. So the only hope for that to get better is for the people on that side of the ball that are supposed to be star players to play better. Or to get the ball more, right? Jarvis should probably get the ball more than he does. And maybe less touches for Jamarcus Brantley, right? And targets for Rashard Higgins. We targeted him way too much today. But those problems aside, those issues aside, the Browns did win. And what that does mean is that they're still in the thick of it. There's still a lot on the table here for the rest of this season. And it can change like that. I remember the Ravens were feeling similarly to the Browns, like a huge disappointment. The offense was sputtering, and then at the last 6 weeks of the season, they turned it around. Who says the Browns can't do it? I don't think it's out the realm of possibility. Now let's talk about the defense and how they played here. Look, it's hard to glean anything from how the defense played realistically because Tim Boyle is just not a good quarterback. He's not an NFL quarterback, in my opinion. He is a dude who is out there. And he looked like a dude who was out there. He could not complete passes. He was not accurate. The one player that the Lions do have is DeAndre Swift, and they did a good enough job against him for most of the game. DeAndre had the one drive where he got that touchdown run. And look, DeAndre Swift, I think he's a really good player. So I'm going to live with him having a good game against the Browns. But, it's something that you would have liked to not be seen. Maybe if you had more support by the offense, you could have taken the run game out by default of Detroit. But unfortunately, your offense really didn't give the defense that much support, kind of similar to the Minnesota game. So that ended up happening. Other than that, look, when the defense needed to step up today, they stepped up. They got 2 turnovers. They made 2 stops on the Browns, 2 turnovers, right? When the Browns turned the ball over, they forced a field goal one time on the 20, and they got 3 and out the next on the first interception. So good on the Browns defense, right? They didn't let the offensive mistakes weigh them down and get them out of this game or the lead out of the hands of the Cleveland Browns. So hats off to the defense. They did their job, and quite frankly, I feel like the defense, more so than the offense, does its job when it's supposed to. You could talk about the performances of the defense playing well or against not great offenses, but we're talking about a Browns team that can't score the ball against bad defenses right now. So, I think the defense, as crazy as this sounds, and, I know people peg me as like a Joe Woods supporter, even though I was a Joe Woods hater in the offseason to some people. Like, it just changes based on whatever people want to think of me at that time. But, when it comes to which unit of the ball, of football, when it comes to which unit of this team that's been more reliable, man, it's been the defense. I would rather rely on this defense than the offense, and that speaks volumes on how disappointing the offense has been. But that aside, you got the win, so you can continue your season, and you're still on track. Well, not on track, but you still can do a lot this year. There's a lot on the table here. It's up to the Browns. Hopefully, they play better. I'm begging Baker Mayfield to play better. I'm begging Baker to come out and look good on national TV on Sunday Night Football versus the Ravens so we can get excited about this team again, because we know that if Baker's playing like this is the Baker Mayfield that people talk about nationally that you can't win a Super Bowl with, right? When he's playing like this is not like winning football quarterback level play. The Baker Mayfield you can win a Super Bowl with is the dude that was playing last year. So we need that dude to show up. I'm begging that dude to show up. And I know he's injured. He's got all these injuries and whatever. But quite frankly, it doesn't seem like the injuries are the reason that he's not playing well when you look at him on the field. A lot of the issues are just decisions that he's making that are wrong or hesitating on. It doesn't look like it's physical with him, right? If it were physical, I would be more lenient on him, right? But it doesn't look like the physical stuff is really affecting him as much as the mental stuff. So he needs to get it together. He needs to have a good game next week. He needs to help carry this offense. He needs to give us a reminder on why we thought he should have got an extension in the offseason, and he needs to do it fast, because right now this is how quarterbacks get ran out of town when they play like this, and I would not want to see that with Baker, but that's the path that he's on. He needs to get off of that path. He needs to play better. So hopefully next week he does that, because guess what? If the Browns beat the Ravens next week, we're not going to care about this Detroit game no more. We're not going to care about it. Remember that Jacksonville game last year that the Browns played where they squeezed out there with a 3-point victory on the road and everybody was upset and angry and talking about how this team sucks, and then they went out and blew out Tennessee the next week, and then we never talked about that Jacksonville game again? That's exactly what this Detroit game can be if the Browns can pull off what I would think is a little bit of an upset against the Ravens in Baltimore, considering you have not done that in quite a while. And do that thing there. But if they can win that game, if they can change things, it's so for the Browns. Look, this game's behind them. They already won it. They're 6-5. The rest of the season's ahead of them. There's a lot on the table, and it's all about how they come out attacking from here on out. Whether they want to be 500, under 500, or a playoff team, because all of it can happen for this team. It's just what they want to do with this season. But that's it for this video. I want to thank you guys for watching. Again, guys, have a great day. Have a